Has it ever occurred to you that you are following up this tutorial on, let's say, YouTube, Udemy, or Codecademy, or any other popular site, and the instructor just typed out something in the terminal that doesn't run on your Windows machine, simply because you are on Windows and they're using a different operating system, let's say Mac OS or Linux. Now, this is because commands in Linux and Mac terminal, they are different from the ones that you can type in a Windows terminal, as you can see. So suffer no more, because today what you're going to be doing is saving you. Now, just a quick disclaimer, this is not going to work on some older versions of Windows, and what you'll need is, let's say, a Windows 10, a newer version of Windows, let's say Windows 10 or higher. Now, to start off with, what you're going to need to do is make sure, of course, you have internet connection. Now, we're going to go to the start menu there, and we're going to search for something. We're going to search for Windows features. Now, this will enable us to turn on and off some Windows features, which are, or which by default are off, and one of those features is the Linux subsystem for Windows. Now, as I said, this is going to only work for Windows 10 or higher. So go ahead and search through list and make sure that the Windows subsystem for Linux is checked. Now, once you check this for the first time, your machine is going to detect that and it's going to ask you to reboot. So make sure you reboot your machine, and it's going to take some time. So just give it some time, let it reboot, and after it has rebooted, now we can start. So when your machine has completely rebooted and you have everything set up, now what you need to do is open your store, which is right here, your Microsoft Store, and inside the store we are going to get some sort of terminal or Linux subsystem that is going to allow us to interconnect the subsystem for Windows with a Linux subsystem. So inside the Microsoft Store, what you're going to do, or what you're going to type here is, we're going to be using Ubuntu. So make sure you have Ubuntu, and you can select the version that you are comfortable with, or since you're doing this for the first time, you won't be comfortable with any version. So I suggest that you go with the latest version, which is Ubuntu 20.04. So make sure you click on Ubuntu 20.04. And this, what this is going to do, it is going to allow us to key in or type in some Windows or some Linux commands in our terminal, I say. So as you can see, I already have it installed, and it took a while to install it, so I paused the video and installed it before I started recording. So make sure you go ahead and install it. It is a huge file, about 600 and something, above, just something above 600 megabytes. So make sure you install it correctly, and once you install it, it is going to pop up some notification that the application has installed successfully, and it will ask you to launch the application. So don't launch it directly or just yet. What you'll need to do is to open the start menu, and you're going to search for Ubuntu. Ubuntu right there, and you're going to click it. So when you click it to open, now what it is going to do, it's not going to open the same way mine opens like this. It's going to open and ask you for entering in, since it will be a first time, you'll be entering a Unix password, and that password, it is the same password that you'll need to remember all through, because when you'll be running some commands in here, some of those commands will require that root Unix password. Now, once you've set up the Unix password and followed through the defaults, this is what you'll land on at the first. But this is how it should look like at first. So when you have set up everything correctly, this is what you land on at first. But don't worry about the background and the opacity as such. That I'll show you towards the end of this video of how we can tweak that up. Now, as you can see, I'm on Windows, but we have this Linux subsystem, and we can type in some Linux commands here. As you can see, we have we can use this list command to list out everything, or ls-la, and in here we, as you can see, we list out everything. In here we have the files, and the ones in blue, these are the directories. So to change into any of these files, or to list out, or to see what is written or what is contained in any of these files, what you can do is we can cut out the, let's say, dot bash tree, like that. And as you can see, this is what is inside that file. So if you are on Windows and you type out that command, let's say cut maybe something, if we do an ls here, if we do cls, if we do an ls-la on the user, on the currently logged in user, if we do control L, as you can see, it is not clearing the screen. But if we go to the Linux subsystem and we do control L, it clears the screen. So that is the difference in the commands between the Mac and the Linux. So for Windows, we'll need to do cls to clean the screen. Now if we cd into our desktop like that and we do an ls-la, we see all the directories and the files in there. So we can't just go ahead and say, for example, I have a file which is, if I can just find it, if you want to check out everything that is inside these snippets.txt. So if I can do a cut on the snippets.txt, then as you can see, we have listed out everything inside the uh, the text file. And this is possible because of enabling the Windows subsystem for Linux, which enables us to write in some Linux commands in the Windows machine itself. Now, to display this same bash shell in the Windows terminal, what you need to do is, if we clear out the screen there, we can just type in bash like that and hit enter. And as you can see, it will open a new bash session or a new bash terminal inside the desktop itself. So if we do like that and hit Control L, as you can see, it clears the screen and we can write in the bash commands in here. So let's hop over to our Ubuntu, and when you open the bash shell inside the Windows terminal, it navigates you to the place that you want to go. But inside the Ubuntu itself, you have to find out your way, or to navigate your way to the desktop. So let me show you how we can find our way to the desktop from this bash shell inside the Ubuntu terminal itself. So if we list out everything, now in here there is this mount folder, so we can cd into mount like that, and it needs to be mount like that. So we are inside the mount. If we list out everything, this is the C drive, which is the local drive on our machine. If we cd into the C drive and we list out everything, we can see we have these users. So if we cd again into users like that and we start everything, we see we have some users there. We have the public users, we have all users, and we have this root user. So if we cd into the root user and list out everything, now we see in there we have some very huge files which are in the root user. So if we do an ls-la to see the permission and the rights, and also to see the folders and the files inside here, we can see, if we check, now I turned off scrolling, but we should be able to navigate to our desktop, like saying that if we cd into the desktop like that and list out everything, now we are inside the desktop. So if we close out everything and do an ls-la, now I can't go into the details of what this means, but if we check, for example, this OBS recording folder, it has a read, write, execute permission over the root directory. So that is what this rwx means. So I may do another video, another detailed video on maybe some sort of intro to some of these Linux commands, if this might seem overwhelming for you. But what the aim of this video is to get you off the ground and enable you to follow along in any stuck situation that you might have, depending on the different operating systems that you might be following upon. So we are inside the desktop, clear out everything, but as you can see, we had to cd into all these folders here to get to the desktop. What you can do to get back to the home folder is we just type cd and we are back to the home folder. If we list out everything, we see there's this file that was installed when I was installing Python. But if we list out everything and do an ls-la to get the read write or the detailed view with the permissions themselves, this is for the root folder or for the user, and then for the folder itself, and then for the file itself or the folder. So for example, for this local folder, it has a read write execute, and as you can see, for all these other files in there. Now, as you remember, the ones in blue, those are the folders, and the ones in white, these are the files. So inside here, we can check to what we want to do is we want to sort of automate this process, where if we want to change into our desktop folder, we'll need to create some alias inside the bash rc. And what an alias is, it is just a short command that will be a shorthand syntax that will enable us to, let's say, for example, if we are in the home directory and we just type in something, let's say, if we just type desktop and hit enter, it should navigate us to the desktop. So let me close that session there. And what we'll need to do is to sudo nano, and you can use any editor, and I'm just going to use nano since nano is easier to use. We can sudo nano into the tilde or the back tilde, that one. So I wanted to highlight it. So this tilde here, the tilde slash, it means inside the home directory. So if we sudo nano into the home directory and we need to check for the bash rc file, so if we sudo into that bash rc file, as you can see, it asks me for the password for the root user. Now when you set up this for the first time, you would have to indicate your root user and give them the password. That is the password that I told you will need to remember. So key in my password, and as you can see, it opens up this bash rc folder inside the home directory. So if I can just close it, and if I print the working directory, as you can see, we are inside the home folder and we have the root user. So I'll bring up the up command using the previous command using the up arrow, and we can sudo into that file. And as you can see, the second time it didn't ask me for the password, because if you're using sudo, sudo will remember the password for some time, so you don't have to keep in keying in the password every time. So inside here, if we're not running interactively, I will do nothing. Now inside here, as you can see, there are some aliases that I've created, and one of them is, if I just type in home, if I just type in home, what you'll see is it is exactly the same thing that happened. We changed the directory into the mount folder, the C drive, then we went to the users, then this user, then we went to the desktop itself. So we won't need to type or remember everything that is typed out correctly as it is in here. What you'll need to do is to just type in home. So for example, if I can change that, and we can create another alias, and in here, so you create an alias like that, and you give it a name. So let's say if you want a specific folder inside the desktop, or let's say the tutorials folder, so I can just say tutorials like that. And what you're going to do is put that inside the double quote or the single quotes, and first thing we're going to cd into the mount directory like that. And after that, you remember we went to the C, then we were going to the users, and then the user which I'm using, which is that user, then we went to the desktop that, and we'll need to go to tutorials like that. So if I save everything by, and down here we have some shorthand syntaxes or commands. So if I exit out and hit Y to save and hit enter to keep the same file name, and if I just type toots, now what this is going to do is it's going to navigate me inside the seems like I created cd into mount C users in desktop. Then we have the tutorials, or what we can do is put a trailing slash at the end there since it's a folder. And those are some of these aliases. One of them is home. So if I type home, it will take me to the desktop. And if I, and you can, let's cut out. If you go back in there, and I wanted to remove those lines there. So we have this, only these two aliases there. We have the home one and the toots one. So we cd into the mount, and then we go to the users are in desktop, and then tutorials. I don't think that is the correct folder, but let's try it out and see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll come back and change it. So if I do toots and toots not found, if I check out home, we are inside the home. If we list out everything, and that is tutorials. So if I cd into tutorials like that, so let's change back and bring up the last command. We go back to our bash rc, and I think it's with the spacing there, and the trailing backslash there. So tutorials, make sure I copied that, or I listed that out correctly, and that needs to be like that. So if I save everything by hitting Ctrl X, Y to save, then enter to keep the same file name, I will clear the screen and do toots like that. Still the same thing. If I do home, if we go back there, what I'm going to do is add let's add the trailing backslash there to see if it works. If we go back, type in bash there, Control enter. If we type home, now we're in the home directory. If we go back and do tutorials, so toots like that, we see we are inside the tutorials folder. So if we list out everything, we see we have these two folders there, and all of them are directories. So if we cd it back, and let's say if we sudo nano into dot bash rc like that. So the mistake I made was, I think, the trailing backslash. I didn't include the trailing backslash. So if you want to add another alias, or as you can see, the process is quite simple. So if I can close that, and what at this point you should be good to go to write some Linux commands inside, or using the Ubuntu terminal inside your Windows machine. Now, what prompted me to make this video is I did a video where I was deploying an e-commerce website that we built from scratch on Heroku. Now, Heroku doesn't give you the freedom that comes with if you deploy your site to your own Linux server. Now, to deploy your site to your own Linux server, you will need to have, let's say, a Linux based system that you're operating from. Now, you can't do that from Windows directly, and that is why I made this video, so that we can set up this system so that we can deploy also our website to our Linux server. Now, most of the time what you'll hear about, or when you're using Linux, or when you're doing development, is something called environment variables. Now, I didn't know how to set up this from scratch when I was starting out learning this, and it used to scare me a bit, but I got the hang of it, and I wondered, where do these environment variables live? So if we list out everything there, now inside here, as you can see, we have these different folders and files, these directories and files in here. Now you'll see, or what you'll hear people commonly refer to, is something called the bash profile. Now inside the bash profile, it is where you set up all your environment variables. Now I'll let me delete that so that we can set up our own environment variables. Now to delete a directory in Linux, we'll do rm-rf, and it is doshed bash profile, like that. And if we list out everything, ls-la, as you can see, it is completely gone. Now to create it, we will use that command, touch.bash underscore profile, like that. Now if we list out everything, you can see our bash profile is back. So we can change into our bash profile like that, so that I can show you how we can set up some environment variables so that we can get them anywhere inside our applications. So for example, if you have some passwords, let's say for your email and for some specific accounts that you want to hide from users when you push your code to GitHub or the rest, now what you can do is hide those inside the environment variable. So we can sudo nano inside the into the home folder, then we go to bash underscore profile, like that. If we sudo into that, now it is currently clean. Now to put down some environment variables, we'll export the name of that environment variable and set it to, say, a string like that, and put the name there, so Sydney, or do something nice, code with me. Now we can export another environment variable, and let's say email password, like that. And let's rename it to let's set the password to 1 up to 9, and we need to make sure that the spacing is not there. As you remember, it messes up. Now to save, you can do Control X, Y, hit enter to keep the same name. Now to get those environment variables, if you're using Python, or as in our case we'll be using Python Django, it is really easy to get those variables. Now first things first is you'll need to have Python installed. So if we type Python in here and it gives you an error, make sure you go ahead and install Python inside your Linux subsystem. And to install Python, it is really easy. All you need to do is apt, and tag sudo in front of that, and we can do sudo apt get, then install, then the package name Python. Now you can do Python 3, and this is simply because Linux comes pre-installed with a default value of Python a default package of Python, which is Python 2. And if you don't tag on the Python 3, it will install the previous versions of Python, and we want the latest version of Python. So you can do 3.8 point, I think 4 is out. I don't know. Let's just do 3, and I'm not going to hit enter because it will take a while since you're doing it for the first time. But once you've installed it and you've done that correctly, so you'll give it time to install. It will ask you if you want to continue. You'll hit Y or just yes. Sometimes you'll hit enter. So depending on the prompt, you'll know what. So after you've installed it, you can do an upgrade, and that is simply by saying sudo upgrade, and that will upgrade that package to the latest that there is. So upgrade like that. Now, if we have Python installed, now let me show you how we can get those environment variables. Now, what you can do is open up the Python interactive shell, and that is by Python 3 like that. Now, if we do like that, clear out the screen, and first thing we need to import OS, and let's create some variables. The name, and that will be os.environ.get, and we remember the value that we assigned that variable inside the environment or inside our bash profile. It was the name. So if we get the name like that, close of that, and then let's try to print the name, we should get the name itself, and we have that. So if we have our password, and which is os.environ.get, and it was email pass. I already forgot. So email password. Yes, let's see if we get that. And seems like it's loading, and invalid syntax. Okay, so let's get the name and then the email. Let's see if we can get all of them in one line. So email password like that. So we have all that. Then we can print the name to see if we have all those, and it is just giving the name itself. Now, as you can see, this is how you can get those variables from the bash profile. So if I can just exit and see why I'm not getting the name itself, and that was if we sudo nano, and we can also go ahead and create an alias that will automatically open the bash profile inside the nano editor. So we can sudo nano into the bash, bash profile like that. So export, and that was email password. And okay, so if we do Python 3, and we also need to import OS like that, and then pass, it will be os.environ.get, and it was keep forgetting, so email password like that. So email password. I hope this time it works. And okay, I think I might be getting an error since I'm using the pass. So os dot email password like that. So we have our password. let's print the password like that. And the password seems to be not coming through, but first things first, let's exit. And what I'm going to show you is how to create an alias that will automatically open uh, the bash profile inside the nano editor. So we can cd into our bash rc, and that is with sudo nano into dot bash rc like that. And let's go ahead and create an alias again. And the name, let's say nano profile like that. And we can give it so we're going to sudo, and that is like that. So sudo nano, and that is inside the home directory, then dot bash profile like that. So what this is going to do is it will prompt you for your sudo password, then it will open the nano editor, or it will open the bash profile inside your nano editor. So let's go ahead and test that out. Now we can add another alias and say this, I'll just name it profile. And what it's going to do is it will open the bash profile inside the code editor. Now what you can do is, let's say let's first deal with what we have now. So if we go back now, everything is gone, so I'll have to unfortunately repeat that. So alias, and it was nano profile, I guess. So nano profile, and we want sudo nano, and we're going to go into the home folder, then bash underscore profile. We want to open that inside the nano editor. So like that, we have this alias here, nano profile. So if we just type nano profile, it will open that inside the nano editor. Now I'll close off that since I don't need it. It was just for demonstration purposes. We'll save everything there. And if we do, if we go there and do nano profile like that, as you can see, it opens the nano profile inside the bash, or the bash profile inside the nano editor, and we didn't have to go through the process of cd or changing directories and all that. Now what I wanted to show you is if you can just check was what if we change into the bash profile itself. I wanted to create another alias that will open the bash profile inside the code editor itself. So what you'll need to do is go ahead and say alias profile. Now this will only work if you have Visual Studio installed correctly, so make sure you have Visual Studio installed correctly. Now we'll do code, and then on the home folder, then dot bash underscore profile. I think that should work. So we are doing code, then the name of the file, so that will just open that file inside the code editor which I'm using, which is my best and which is the best out there, and that is Visual Studio Code. So if I hit Control X, Y to save, and enter to keep the same file name. And if I do profile like that, and let's check, make sure we are running the bash command. So if we do profile, now what this is going to do is it is going to install the Visual Studio Code server onto your Windows subsystem Linux subsystem for Linux if you're doing this for the first time. But since I already have it installed, it will just go ahead and open it up directly. And as you can see, I have my Visual Studio Code open, and it is taking some time to load, which is fine. Is it fine? No, it's not fine. And we have our bash profile there. So if we add another, let's say email user, which is just the email username, and let's say if we just add my email there, and if we save everything and close off Visual Studio Code, now if we go back here and do the nano profile like that, now you see the changes that we made inside the Visual Studio Code, they are reflected inside the bash profile, which is used to host our environment variables. And these environment variables are available globally, so you can use them inside every application as long as you access them correctly. Now, I can close off that. Now, to access this bash profile inside the Windows, as you can see, all we need to do is type in bash. Now, to exit out of that, excuse me, we just type exit and exit there. So we are out of that bash profile. So to get in, we just type bash and bash again. Now this will, the first one, you can exit. Now the first time we typed bash, it navigated us into the Linux subsystem itself. So inside here we cannot write or we cannot execute some bash commands. As you can see, if we do the home, now it will give you an error that the command home is not found. Did you mean all these? If we do, let's say, profile, you see that all those are not found. But if we do, if we type bash again, now we are inside the bash terminal. If we do home, we are inside the desktop. If we can just go back and do home again, now we are inside the desktop itself. If I cd back and do nano profile, it asks me for the password itself. So I typed it wrong there. And as you can see, it opens up that bash profile. So if we exit out, now we are inside the root Linux system itself, and inside here we can type the Linux commands. So if we exit again, now we are inside the command prompt terminal itself. Now if you're wondering why or how this is set up so that I can see the background or the desktop itself, now this is really easy. If you click here and you go to properties, now inside here you can change all the properties that you wish. Now if you go to font, as you can see, I have my font at 26. Now if you go to layout, you can also change the layout. If you go to colors, you can change the colors of the text and the color of the background. Now what I've just manipulated is the opacity. Now if we increase the opacity to 100, now we see the background, it is not clearly, or it is not visible as such. Now I wanted the background to be visible, which makes it look cool. All right. Now I think that is going to do it for this video. Now I think there's something which I messed up, and that is inside the layout. something inside the cursor. So if you go to the terminal and the cursor shape, you use legacy style. I want a vertical bar. So if we hit OK, now we see we have that vertical bar there. So that is going to do it for this video. If we check for the command prompt just to show. Also here you can see I have the vertical bar. If we go to the properties and we go to the terminal itself, I have vertical bar. If we go to colors, now I have the opacity of this at 90. I change it to something lower, and if we go to all those, make sure I haven't messed up everything. Now everything looks fine. Now I guess this is going to do it for this video, so wait up for the video where we deploy our application to Linode, which is a Linux server, and I can't talk much about that in this video, but stay along for that. So thank you for watching this video. Make sure you give it a like and give it a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.